Hey, good morning, everybody. My name is Jason Flame, host of the Master Motivation Podcast. I'm excited to bring to you another amazing interview with an amazing guest who will provide motivation, inspiration, and education to get our day started. So let me introduce him right away. This is Dallas Lawrence. He's a martial artist, instructor, mentor, and a proud dance dad. Dallas grew up immersed in American Kenpo, training under his father and influenced by the legendary Ed Parker, who sat on his panel for his first black belt test. What began as a family tradition turned into a lifelong calling as Dallas discovered his passion for teaching and mentoring through martial arts. For more than 20 years, he has owned and operated successful studios in Utah, producing hundreds of black belts and shaping leaders who impact their communities. Guided by his faith and commitment to family, Dallas finds his greatest fulfillment in inspiring others. Whether on the mat in competition or as a supportive dance dad to his three daughters, today he continues to grow his schools, coach national level teams, and create an environment where character, camaraderie, and personal growth thrive. Good morning, Dallas. How are you?
Doing good. Thank you. Thanks for the introduction.
Absolutely. Hey, I'm excited to have you on, and you've already got a couple people watching,
All
people
right.
cheering for you already. We got Ron Garcia checking in. Good morning, guys. Thank you for your comments and thank you for chiming in. This is going to be a fun interview to just kind of get to know you, Dallas, a little bit more. Let everybody in the audience ask questions. If you have questions, please post them in the comments. And of course, for everybody watching, please go to Master Motivation Podcast on YouTube and subscribe to our channel. So we were just chatting a little bit, kind of getting things going, getting all the tech stuff ready. That's always the fun part of the interview. But
1970. And I was born in the 70s. That's hard stuff for me.
right, exactly. Well, so we're pretty close in age, right? So I was born in 74. You were born
78. Yeah.
78. Okay.
Real
So
close.
I have a brother who's the same year, so pretty
Okay.
close. But yeah, man,
Yeah.
70s and growing up in the 80s, we could probably talk a lot about pro wrestling. We could probably talk a lot about the tournament scene back in the day. We could talk
Right.
about a lot of stuff, but
Karate
we'll get into
Kid.
it in just a second here. Tell me what's going on in your life. How are things going? What's up with the family, the schools, all that?
Yeah. So, and again, thanks for having me. Love what you do with this podcast and for the martial arts community. Super cool. And I support it. My life is, so I have three daughters, three karate schools. My daughters dance mostly. I have one, my youngest is a little more sporty and trying basketball and volleyball, which is a nice change of pace for me. And I love dance, by the way. I love watching it. My oldest is in college and recently got married. So she's just down the street at BYU. And then my middle child is 14. So three daughters that all dance and have all dabbled in karate. But they are dancers. And I have three karate schools with an incredible team that work hard and understand the purpose that we're all focused on. And I have a team that I love right now. They all love martial arts. They all train and they're passionate about teaching and everything that we do. So a lot of good things here in Utah for sure. A lot of good things. And our tournament scene, I will mention that for Utah sport karate has kind of exploded the past couple of years. A lot of support and a lot of the schools that are supporting the tournament scene here, which has been a cool change of pace for Utah to come together in a nice way. So.
Nice. Very cool. Well, being a California kid and born and raised here, grew up here, going to tournaments and stuff. I mean, there's a lot of martial arts schools in California. It seems like they're just popping up everywhere. And there are tournaments, it seems like just about every weekend somewhere. And the tournament scene was always super, super busy. So I never got out of California to go and check out Utah or Colorado but it's good to hear that
You
is.
didn't need to.
I'm sorry, I didn't need to, right?
You
Yeah, I
didn't
had
need to, yeah.
plenty here. Hey, we got someone else watching, cheering you on. Thank you guys for watching.
All right, Brian, my man.
Brian. So, hey, real quick, I did mention I have a student, Anthony Perez. Anthony, if you're watching, he was like super pumped and excited. He's like, oh my
Cool.
God, you're going to have Dallas Lawrence on. I
Yeah.
love Team Rumble. I hang out with
Cool.
those guys when I go to the tournament. So, shout out Anthony. Dallas is here. You want to give him a quick
Kid.
word?
Yeah, man, that I just remember he had this like awesome smile, welcoming attitude, and he had two or three of my students in his competing division, and they all just made friends really easily, which is so refreshing, right? In a competitive world,
Yeah.
you got to make friends and you've got to learn to compete hard and cheer each other on. And Anthony was terrific at that. So you're training him well, and as are his parents, I'm sure too.
Well, thank you, Anthony. There you go. There's your shout out, buddy. I'm really proud of you. I know he's going to go compete in Orange County this weekend, so he's excited to
Good
keep
luck,
getting
sir.
after it. We
Yeah,
got Lindsay who is watching as well. So she
Lindsay.
says Dallas is so fantastic and such a great mentor, leader, and more importantly, awesome. He is fun and great. Thank you, Lindsay, for watching, and
Thanks,
thank you for
Lindsay.
that comment. I remember meeting you pretty early on when I got involved in Maya, and it was actually I met you through meeting your parents, and so
Yeah,
I worked with your parents a little bit in the early
right.
years of me consulting with Maya. How they doing?
They're great. Yeah, I just ran into them at the gym the other day. Yesterday, they just came back from Hawaii, so they're doing really well. Living the life of we've been trying to push them a little bit to hey go explore, travel, retire a little bit, enjoy, and they're doing that, and they work out consistently. They've set a high bar for me and my siblings to stay fit, active, and you know so they're great examples. They're doing great.
That's
Yes.
awesome. We'll
Yeah.
make sure to tell them that I say hi, and if you guys are watching, hope you guys are doing well.
Will
You,
do.
you how
Yeah.
many siblings do you have?
So I have two brothers, one sister. Sister didn't do karate. Two brothers did,
Okay,
and still do. My brothers both run karate schools as well. Yeah. So.
amazing.
Mhm.
That's so cool. Well, let's get into it. And let's talk about some of your early roots. You grew up training in American Kenpo under your father, and even had Ed Parker sit on your first black belt panel. What do you remember most about your earlier experiences in martial arts?
Yeah. So I'll tell you, the first actual memory that I have of training in martial arts was, and this is around the time when kids were still, it was a new thing for kids to train martial arts, which, if you remember the Karate Kid, I mean, that opened up major doors for an industry that really didn't fully exist as a professional industry. So my first memory of training was being at my dad's studio and always being on the sidelines watching who I thought were these, legendary guys. They're just
Hmm.
my dad's buddies smacking each other around. And I remember my first karate class getting a white belt and being so excited to show my dad's friends that I could jump rope with a white belt. And I got in big
Push-ups.
trouble for that. Yeah, so I quickly learned that the belts are to be respected, they're not a toy, and I was probably 5 or 6. Um, but in those days, one of the things that I really remember and I think took away from and observed upon reflection about the culture that my mom and dad in their karate schools created and the Kenpo culture was there was an excitement about the brand. There was an excitement about what possibilities existed. The self-defense techniques were a huge part of Kenpo culture. The names, there were these really cool names that went along with the techniques, and there were alternate endings and extended versions of a self-defense technique where you could turn a guy around and smack him 10 more times. And we ate that stuff up.
Yeah.
So I remember that culture, and even though Ed Parker was, I was fairly young when he passed, but my dad certainly embraced a lot of his characteristics. And Ed Parker he was a phenomenal storyteller, and so when he would teach, he really would drive home lessons and principles and ideas through story, and really making sure that you felt it in your heart and mind, and making sure you felt it when he smacked you too. Um, but yeah, good memories about the culture of Kenpo in the '80s. It was cool. It was
I
cool.
love it. My only, well, my first memory or my first introduction to who Ed Parker was, I grew up, my mom was a huge Elvis fan. So it was
Okay.
really the only reason that I knew who Ed Parker was until I realized what the Long Beach International was, later, and then learning more and more as I went along. But the one thing about, um, the old school guys, like from back in the day, like my instructor was also a really good storyteller. It just seemed like that was such an important part of the tradition of martial arts, was telling those stories and carrying
Mm.
on that legacy of their instructor before them. Do you feel like that is getting lost in martial arts now, more modern martial arts, that there's not as much storytelling?
Yeah, you know, we do such a good job. And somewhere in the 90s, these professional industry people came along and helped us to professionalize our schools, including the mat chats and the character development and the words of the week, if you're whatever, we
Hmm.
do a lot of that stuff really well. And sometimes when you systematize that and you put it in a structured, say these things, do it like this, you forget to, as a mentor and a coach, you forget to coach people on how to speak from the heart, and how to, hear a story, or understand a principle that you then can teach through stories or drills or otherwise. And just to allude to, I know Mike Metzger really well, but
Yep.
that's one of the things he's often said to me is, you know speak from the heart. I've asked him, "Well, how would you say this? How would you speak from the heart?" Meaning trust your character and your knowledge on a subject. And I think it's an important thing for us to pass on to the next generation of instructors. um, Storytelling, I mean, it captivates kids, and we all know it, and it captivates adults too. Our story is what connects us. So
Well, I mean, from the beginning of time, that's how, legacy is kept, is through the storytelling and the passing down of things from, one generation to the next. And listen, you brought up Mike Metzger, and I'm glad you did, because he, changed my life in so many ways, and is such a mentor to me. Um, love him or hate him when he speaks, because he will tell you the truth, and
yeah,
he will
that's
tell
right.
you how he feels, because he
That's
does
right.
speak from the heart. And I think that you hit that really well, that sometimes it's good just to be authentic and not get stuck in the script of a phone call or a script of a mat chat, but speaking from the heart and being authentic. I mean, I think sometimes my instructors kind of laugh when I start telling stories, because they've heard them a
Yeah,
million
yeah.
times. They could probably tell the stories as
Sure.
well as I could. But like sometimes when I'm teaching my black belt classes or instructor training classes, leadership classes, I get into storytelling mode, and I can just see their eyes just like,
Yeah.
they just kind of get mesmerized, as was I when my instructor would tell me stories of Chuck Norris and Pat Johnson, and the blood and guts era of the tournament scene back in those days. But it's just, I don't know. I think it just brings something deeper to our martial arts training. We often say that martial arts is more than kicking and punching, and it's more than just the character development and the discipline and the confidence. It's part of carrying on tradition, and helping um, keep that legacy, of the past. And so I think that that's really important. So I'm glad you got a chance to learn from really a pioneer and a legend too,
Sure.
and pass down that information.
And history is a story that, right, if we don't, like you said, sometimes your students start to, "Oh, here he goes." My kids do that. Here he goes, right? But history is a story that we have to respect and understand the value of it. And so, yeah, I think my team they've kind of learned that, okay, it's more than just a story. It's more than just legacy. There are lessons that, we will repeat mistakes if we don't learn. And so, important that we keep those stories alive. So
No, absolutely. My son, who is 20 years old and is one of the head instructors at our school, he asked me a lot, Dad, how do you just talk about things as if like you just know it? And I'm like, well, son, that's experience number one. I've been doing it for a long time, and I've had a lot of experiences, and I'm just sharing my experience. And I said, and you've had the same thing. You've been training since you were 2.5 years old. Speak from your experience and speak from your knowledge. And believe it or not, at 20 years old, you've got some wisdom to share with the students too. So don't be afraid to just talk,
right.
and let
Yeah.
them listen, because they will. So it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool to see my son and the next generation. As you were saying, you have a great team. It's so awesome to watch our team get these opportunities to kind of fill in where we left
Yeah.
off, and just take the reins.
Can I say one more thing to add to what you said with your son?
Of course.
I'm a dad. So my daughter, now that my daughters are so spread out in age, they rarely are in the same class dancing together. So it's a
Hmm.
super cool treat for me to see. So on Saturday, my oldest teaches a hip hop class. That's her specialty. And my two younger daughters were taking the class, and I was kind of just like, hiding, but watching.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just listening to my oldest teach principles and get into the details. And she's so present with the whole entire class, giving them exactly what they need, and just not just going through and now do this, do that, like just really a good teacher. It was such a proud moment that I learned from her. I actually told her, I'm like, you said some things that I wrote, I took note of, and I'm going to use those lessons that you taught very well, by the way. And now I'm patting my own back, but she's like, well, Dad, I learned that from you. And,
Mm-hmm.
part of me is like, no, that's just you had your own dance teachers, and she's very naturally gifted in so many ways. But I accepted. I said, thank you. Okay.
Right. Well, hey, those are definitely proud moments. I mean, I learn so much more from my kids and my students now more than ever. I think because as a more mature man and father and instructor, I've been able to maybe let go of the ego. Because at 20
Mm,
years old, 30 years old, I
sure.
probably didn't. I was still hanging on to my own ego because the spotlight was on me. It was all about me. I'm teaching you. And now I love it just like you do. I love to sit back. I love to watch my kids work, do what they
Yeah.
do. And
Yeah.
so, and then they tell me, just like you said, Dad, I'm like, where did you learn that? They're like, from you. And I was like, well, you do it really well,
Yeah.
and it's, but they just have their own way of
Mm,
kind of repeating it and putting it out
yeah.
there, which is awesome when they come into their own. Well,
Right.
we're talking a lot about family, and family influence was big for you, right? Karate was a family way of life. How did that shape your perspective on discipline and commitment and community from such a young age?
Yeah. So, and I grew up, I always tell people I grew up in a karate school with my family. They were always present, training. So I think that there was definitely a competitiveness between me and my brothers. We're all fairly close in age, and so I'll give you a story that kind of started things off that way. That gave my dad opportunities to teach us how to rein in the ego a little bit. When to cheer for other people versus to be happy for your own wins, type of a thing. But I remember my first karate tournament, and I had practiced and trained and learned the form, the weapon that I was going to do, a self-defense. Back then we did a self-defense, skit or
Hmm.
something like that, and sparring. And there was one other kid in my division. I think I was a white or a yellow belt, and I had done my form, and they announced that I had won first place. I was so excited. I was cheering. And then it was time for weapons, and I did my weapons form. And then this kid came out and forgot his form. And so his dad came out to sort of help him. And I yelled across the ring to my dad, "Hey, Dad, that kid's cheating. He's not allowed to do that." And my mom, was like doing this, and my dad had to quickly, reprimand me. "Hey, it's okay." It's so those lessons of being competitive but keeping it, that was a great teaching moment for him to be able to, hey, it's okay, it's just a tournament, he's allowed to have help, and you'll need it too one day. Um, but taking those life lessons out of competition moments and creating teaching moments, which for my family, we always say it was over the dinner table is where most of our business and martial arts training and mindset training took place. But the as that story goes, I came home with, I think, 4 unique trophies. And for that one moment in time, I had more trophies than either of my brothers. And that would be the only time that would be the case. After that, they surpassed me and became amazing. So
Wow. So everybody in the family trained, brothers and sister, that everybody trained.
yeah, my sister would dabble, and she was a little more aloof, and she'd come into a class and be consistent for a time and then sort of, I
Hmm.
don't want to do it. Um, but yeah, we all trained. We all trained, and we traveled to karate tournaments together. I mean, I was just saying this to my wife the other day, but so much of our memories were centered around tournaments and training and successes and failures, struggles, and so there were a lot of good memories that bonded us together as a family. And we learned how to, as we grew up, we learned how to remember those things and try to put them into action as we would teach our staff, how to create a family environment, which again, the Maya team, in Metzger, I mean, nobody does it better than them. But it is an important understanding that this school spirit or school pride, it can be a very powerful anchor to helping people train and have a reason to train beyond themselves. Ultimately, in martial arts training, there's team and there's self. The more you yourself are pushing yourself, the better you will be, of course. But having a team and a reason to not slack off, to come to practice because they're expecting you to, and you don't want to let them down. That's a powerful anchor that I have found to be to help me and my team find success through that accountability.
For me and for probably many martial artists that are lifelong martial artists, the martial arts school becomes like a second home to us. Our instructor becomes not necessarily a fill-in father model, but for some it might. But kind of that big character in our life that's helping shape us, and we feel like we belong there, right? I mean, that's kind of the first thing. And then I've just learned over decades of running a school and being part of different organizations that the relationships within the school, whether it be your own family or your adopted family or second family, I think that is what keeps people training more than anything else. I mean, you talk about Maya and you talk about business systems, and that of course is important for running your business. But I think, for me, community is so important, from day one of running my school. And you're right. I did feel that in the Maya organization. I felt that coming up the ranks as I was training as a child. And I think that in some schools that gets missed because we're focused on the stats, the dollars, the business, maybe a little bit more so than we are just creating solid, strong relationships. Because at the end of the day, our relationships with our students, our team, our staff, our instructors, our families. I'm not saying we're going out to dinner and having pizza and beer, every Friday night. I'm just talking about actually getting to know people, learning what makes them feel good about being there. What are their goals? How do I help them reach their goals? And how can we help each other? And that's what you were saying at the end is there's the me and then there's the team. And more often we are successful because of the team, not just because of me.
Right. Absolutely. I think that goes, we talk about community and family and creating a safe, I remember you had a guest on here last name Pineda, and he really did a good job of explaining how, everybody's welcome here. And the story that sticks out to me that he reverberated was of June Rhee in, I believe it was the 50s when segregation was still a thing. And he was like, no, you come in the front door to this African-American man. And that sense of belonging, it's so important. And it goes beyond just creating systems that create belonging for your students, right? We tell our managers and leaders of the schools to be good leaders in that way. But it also, as you expand your operation, I have 3 schools. It's important that my team, my staff, I have about 15 staff members. It's important that we sometimes take time to know that we're here for each other. And sometimes that means filling in when someone's having a rough day or just listening to them if they have something they need to get off their chest. But and sometimes it means like going back to Mr. Metzger, sometimes you got to call him out and say, hey, I'm going to need you to suck this one up and get out there and teach the class. That's sometimes it's not just like feel sorry for me love. It's tough love too. You can't have one without the other if you want to truly be successful. So
absolutely. Hey, and for all of the students that may be watching out there, your students, Was there ever a time that you wanted to quit martial arts?
Hmm.
And how did you get over it?
I blocked it out of my memory. My parents didn't allow that memory to formulate. I'm kidding. Yeah, it's absolutely. Yeah, I mean, for me, and I always say this to my staff. I love martial arts. My dad had a clear, obvious passion for Kenpo and for martial arts. He trained in other styles. I definitely have that same passion. I now do other, I do a lot of the sport karate stuff right now. That's what I'm really into. I love it. Um, but that said, so I guess it was easier for me to when I would have a loss at a tournament or fail a test. And yes, I have failed tests, belt tests. Or, sometimes, I had two brothers that were highly talented, like really good. And now I look back and I do believe that, I call it a blessing that I had to work different and harder to harness talents and abilities that were in me. But it was really easy. It is easy to kind of see somebody who's great and
Hmm.
compare yourself, and that need to find your own strengths that really God has blessed you with. It's an important thing for everyone to do. But yeah, so those moments where nothing stands out as like this one time, right?
Hmm.
Um, but I know there were hard moments coming away from a tournament where I should have won, or a belt test that maybe I failed or something like that. But yeah, I do joke with some of my, this conversation comes up in karate schools a lot. My kid wants to quit, and I personally, I don't like my kids they're not allowed to quit. There's a difference between I don't want to dance anymore, I don't want to do this sport anymore, and I committed at the beginning of this school year to stay with my team for the entire year.
Hmm.
You're not quitting that. You're not going to
Right.
give up on your team.
Right.
Um, but that is definitely a conversation with parents that they throw it back at me. Have you ever wanted to quit?
Yep.
And I joke with them. My parents didn't let me quit, which is sometimes a call out of, are you going to easily let your child quit? Yeah, type of thing. But yeah, so I really, I can't pinpoint any moments where I just wanted to quit as a child. So
Yeah, I mean, and it comes up a lot for us as school owners, and if you have a bunch of school owners talking about it, the conversation it can go in so many different
mm,
directions. When I was a kid, or that all
yeah,
that stuff.
yeah,
Like you said, my parents wouldn't let me quit, or it was a different time. Whatever, it doesn't matter. But I think what you said was really important. Is there's a difference between quitting, and there's a difference between like moving on, right? Like
yeah,
people think that when they get their black belt, if they stop training after, I'm going to be upset because they quit. Well, listen, if you set your goal to become a black belt and you achieve that goal and you decide that you're going to do something else, just take everything you learned as a black belt and apply it to your life, and you're really not quitting, you're just moving on. But if you made a goal to earn your black belt and you set that goal and you stop training at red belt, well, to me that's quitting because you didn't reach the goal you set. And I'm pretty blunt about that with parents, because we have a program, which I'm sure you do. Our upgrade program kind of gears towards black belt training, and that's the commitment that you're going to make. And it's, I get everything from, I don't make my kids do anything they don't
sure.
want to do, and I said,
Right.
ma'am, do you make your kids brush their teeth? Do you make them go to bed on time? Do you make them do their homework? So, yes, you make them do things they don't want to do, but they
Yeah.
don't see it that way. And we could
Mhm.
probably have a really long conversation about this, but I
Sure.
always kind of bring it up with school owners to talk about, look, I think every school owner has wanted to not only quit martial arts. I think there's times in our business where, like, dude, I just want to hang this up. This is way too much work. I could be
Right.
doing something totally different. And but martial arts teaches us perseverance and indomitable spirit, how to work through those challenges and come out stronger on the other end.
Right.
And as
Right.
leaders and mentors and coaches, we've seen what happens with a failure that has catapulted someone. We've seen what's happened with a failure that someone didn't bounce back from. We've seen the good, the bad, the ugly. And at the end of the day, the one question I ask parents when they talk about quitting is, do you trust me?
Mm.
Because if you trust me, I've been here, I've heard this, I've seen this. I know I'm here to do the right thing. And do you trust that I'm here to do the right thing for your child? And so that goes back to that relationship, that community, and communication, kind of understanding where we're at. And I think that that's where some school owners may have a hard time.
Sure. I just wrote that down. I like that. Do you trust me? Because yeah, I'm not here to force you to do something you don't want to do, but I am here to, with experience, uh, and I've seen people successfully overcome failure or hardship or the desire to quit, and be glad that they did, be grateful that they did. And I think too, in our industry, we've learned a lot over the years from our industry and from the different mindsets of coaches who think they need to be too tough and force people to do things, or the flip side where they are too loosey goosey and nice and they just don't have the character to say, hey, you will regret quitting
Mm-hmm.
if you do this. That's hard for people. It's a confrontational thing for some.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that, and again, I don't mean to keep saying Mr. Metzger's name, but he really does this well. An accurate approach to these decisions, an accurate approach from us, the school owners and those who are enforcing policies. If a kid if he's bad for the school and it's good for him to quit, that's one thing. Or, if there's some things going on where it's an appropriate thing that for him to maybe move on, that's okay. But also the flip side of that is the accurate understanding that I might need to call a parent out and say, hey, you will regret this. This is something you're so close, or right. Just finish it.
Right.
Trust me.
Well, I mean, come on. How many times have you seen a student, someone that trained with you, and the first thing out of their mouth is, if I wouldn't have quit, I would have been a 3rd degree or 4th degree black belt. And
Yeah.
and you don't want to say, but you did quit,
Yeah.
well, I always say, well, there's always time to come back,
Yeah.
and but I tell parents all the time, I've never ever, I have never ever had a person earn their black belt and tell me they regretted it. But I have more times than I want to count had a student come to me and say, I wish that my parents wouldn't have let me quit. And it's just the
That's
bottom
right.
line. So,
That's
hey, I
right.
hate to I hate to take a break. We're on such a roll, but I do have to give a quick shout out.
Sure.
We got a sponsor of our show, and I want to give them a shout out here. Guys, take a look. This is Raptor Extreme Karate. All right, guys, we're back. That was Raptor Extreme Karate with Master Kevin Kowalczyk out in Colorado. I'm Jason Flame with the Master Motivation Podcast. I've been here talking with Dallas Lawrence from Lawrence Championship Martial Arts. Dallas, I know you're probably familiar with Kevin. You've seen Kevin and
Yeah.
Jet out on the tournaments.
Yeah. And I was just going to shout out, I spent a little bit of time with Kevin. Great guy. He's taken away my excuses for not doing 540s and backflips in my age. So I'm a little bit bitter about that, but no, I've seen his guys on the circuit. They're terrific. And he's actually kind of teamed up with some of my kids to help them as they've gone out to the circuit more. So awesome crew. Definitely definitely like that guy. So yeah.
Yeah, good stuff. Yeah, and Jet, I met Kevin. God, I think Jet was like barely born,
Okay.
but he's like
Yeah.
he's grown up so much, and now he's killing it. And
Oh, it's
his
awesome to
little
see.
one Kai is out there competing as
Yeah.
well. So
Oh,
very
it's
cool.
so cool. Yeah.
Guys, if anybody has any questions about Raptor Extreme Karate, or you want to learn about how to implement that to your school, let me know. I'll make sure I hook you up with Kevin. But we've been talking with Dallas about just his early days coming up in a family of martial arts, learning Kenpo karate, the Ed Parker system. We talked a little bit about Ed Parker and just the whole family influence that martial arts has had on him, his siblings, his children. If you missed any of it, go back and start it from the beginning, and make sure you guys share this video. Go to YouTube and subscribe to Master Motivation Podcast. But we have so much more to talk about, and I want to pick up because we're talking a little bit about kids quitting martial arts and not training anymore. But you once stepped away from martial arts, right? Did you go on a mission to New Zealand?
That's correct, sir. Yes. Yeah. Stepped away.
Tell
So
us
it's,
tell us about it.
yeah. So in my faith, it's something that young men have the opportunity to do when I was 19 at the time, just to serve and to teach of Jesus Christ. It was one of my favorite times of my life, and I learned so much from that I definitely use in my as I run schools, within the relationships that I have. Um, but yeah, it was a great time, and certainly something that affected me in a positive way forever. I'll never. It's one of those, like, how do I ever pay that back? It's given me so much. So yeah,
Right.
awesome.
I,
Love New
I
Zealand.
always say the way that we can pay things back is pay it forward, right? Take what
Amen.
you've
Yeah.
learned, share it with everybody else, right? That's awesome. At
Yeah.
first you hesitated to pursue a martial arts career, right? What changed when you stepped in to help your family, and how did you discover your passion for teaching?
Yeah, so when I came home from my mission, and when I had left on my mission, I was running my parents' studio. When I say running, what then I thought was running a studio is not running a studio, but I was teaching all of the classes. So in my
Right,
mind, in my 18-year-old mind, I was running the studio.
right.
And I had some good relationships, and the kids loved me, and I was having fun, and I was good at it. And it was a fun time. And then I left, and all these kids, they would write me letters on my mission. And for 2 years, I went away, came home, and when I came back, things were different. There
Mhm.
were other instructors there, including my brothers. And so it was just a little different. And it wasn't really like I had a place there, not by anybody's fault. It just the way the chips fell. So I kind of took a minute away from it. And then one of my dad's karate schools was going to go out of business down in St. George, which is about 3.5 hours away. So he asked me to go run it, save it. And, I said yes. But at that time I was dating my soon to be bride. So I'm sure that affected, being away from her and trying to establish myself as an instructor and as a leader of a studio.
Mhm.
Um, and then on top of that, this is again my story and perception of how things unfolded, but the family atmosphere and the reciprocation of gratitude, like, hey, we're glad you're here. I didn't feel it. And so, there were some things said about, like, it was a transactional relationship, right? We pay
Mhm.
you money, we expect this. And hey, that's cool. I did the job, I taught the classes, but there was nothing beyond that for me
Mhm.
there. And so, of course, like I said, I'm dating my wife, and I moved home, and I stopped doing that. But about a year later, I was about to marry my wife, my future wife, and it was time to get serious about work and career. Uh,
Mhm.
Another opportunity similar had come up with a school which I now own and run, um, and it was going to go out of business. And my dad had said to this person, "Will you run it? Will you run it?" And everybody kind of had said no. They just saw it as a school that wasn't worth their time. And I went there, and the experience was so different. Um, the interactions with the students, it was as if money wasn't an issue. So there was no transactional, like, we give us this. They just were, hey, we're so glad you're here. And that gratitude that they had for my presence fueled.
Mhm.
And I share that story a lot with my students because, and even my staff, you know, we charge a fair wage for our services, as there's a value attached to it, and hopefully people should want to see us have some success in this
Hmm.
industry. We've put so much time to build value in us and in the students, but it's so important that you don't just pay the bills and pay your instructor. You need to pay them compliments. If you want them to stick around, you need to let them know, hey, we appreciate what you do. And that is lost in the customers to the staff, to the, the staff sometimes, but
Hmm.
all the staff needs to show that appreciation. Hey, I'm glad you're here today, because in fact, if you're not here, I don't have a job, and I love this job. And then furthermore, with a larger staff, we need to show them that we appreciate what they do beyond just, like you said earlier, the statistics and the, get out there and, get the new students, and all
Hmm.
those things are important. But if it's only transactional, that there's something missing. It's not a family environment. And my right hand man, Jared Stout, who it's his birthday today. Happy birthday, Jared.
Happy birthday, Jared.
Hopefully he's not listening. Hopefully he's out doing whatever. But one of the things he says often is, if you want to go fast, go alone. And if you want to go far, go with a team. And that is true. It is so true. And my team that has been built over the years has blessed my life. And so I feel it a responsibility to do the same, to enhance their lives through opportunities to teach, to grow in a company, to create a
Hmm.
career. So
Yeah. No, absolutely. I love all of what you said. Our team meetings, we meet with our team every week. And one of the very first things that we start with is our team shout outs, So I'm going to
mm,
give a shout out to everybody on our team for doing a good job in a certain area, just reminding them, hey, I noticed this. But at the same time, also allowing the team to be able to give a shout out to someone else on the team. And it's funny because I find sometimes that the staff has given me a shout out, like, thank you for this, or thank you for, I was like, wow, that's kind of cool. That wasn't what I intended this to be or expected it to be, but it felt good even for me. And so
sure.
that's an important part of it. And then we talk about another important part of our meeting is talking about what was your biggest impact of the week, so that they
Mm,
can reflect and remind themselves of the why we do what we do. Because I mean, sometimes you can get caught in the grind and forget, like, why, that kid that finally nailed the kick, or
right.
finally got first place
Right.
in a tournament and has never placed ever, or finally just came in and had a smile on their face and had a
Yeah.
confident look, whatever. There's a million different things that it could be, but those are important things to remember, because if we can remember our why, the how is easy. It's like I never ever feel like I have to go to work. As a matter of fact, I never, in all the years, and I cringe when my team uses the word "I'm going to work." My kids go, "I'm going to
Yeah. I
work." I'm
never
like,
say
"What?"
it.
I'm like, "What? You
Yeah.
going to what?"
I
Like,
don't. I'm offended when my staff says I'm here at work. I'm like, what? What did you just say? Yeah.
right.
No.
Or
Don't do
or
that.
or when they call me boss, I'm like, I don't want to be
Yeah.
your boss. Like, we're all on the same team, guys.
Yeah.
But anyway, I think all of that's important. It's funny because you were talking about, we deserve a fair wage, and uh, we want our students to see us doing well. I mean, imagine this, right? You're going to get a really important surgery, and you see that the surgeon that's going to perform the operation on you drives in this just beat up, run down, terrible looking car, dressed like he just pulled it out of a trash bag. What are you thinking? And I don't care, like, judge me if you will, but I'm thinking, dude, this guy is not doing my surgery,
Yeah.
And so I just say that because, like, why in the martial arts industry do we have to be volunteers?
Mm,
I think that we can make a difference in people's lives in the same way some doctors, therapists,
yeah. Yeah.
um, any other professional would do. And I think that
Yeah.
martial arts instructors and school owners need to remember that you do deserve to be paid a fair wage. But don't forget, you better be bringing the value for what you teach. You can't
Mm,
teach and just expect, uh, You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it
Yeah.
definitely goes both ways. Hey, you got Michael is watching. I want to shout him out real quick here. Michael says, as a
Michael,
former student of Jared and Dallas, they always made me feel welcome and were great at motivating me to try and try harder. That's awesome. Good stuff.
Michael and his daughter. Awesome. Great students. Yes.
Isn't it awesome to hear from students that trained with us in the past, like
Absolutely.
just
Oh,
like
so fun.
and why is it that they always walk up like timid and like they have this little bit of shame, like, man, I'm not training anymore. I feel like I should come back.
Yeah.
And it's like
Yeah.
all I'm thinking is, dude, it's just good to see you, you
Yeah.
know?
Right. Right.
But
Totally.
it's just funny. Hey,
Yeah.
your faith plays a central role in your life, right? We talked about it a little bit with your
Absolutely.
doing your mission. How do you bring your beliefs, or do you bring your beliefs into your school's mentoring and leadership?
Sure. I'm a Christian, and sometimes I follow. I don't know if you know John Maxwell, right? He
Yes,
was
sir.
a pastor, written a lot of books on leadership and business that have been highly successful, and he often will uh, articulate very well that whether you're a Christian or not, some of these principles that I'm going through, you can internalize them, and whether it's Christianity or Buddhism, there's just so many principles that have high value and truth that some people just need to get over that, I think. But regardless, I so many Christian values go hand in hand with the martial arts values that we teach and develop, over time: discipline, self-control. I think one of the most important, lessons that Jesus Christ taught was love. And it's often, when you look at some of the conflict and contention that is felt so deeply, especially right now in our country, right? It's always because of how far away from the most basic fundamental principles of Christianity or otherwise we get. When you lead with love, and when love is the motivating factor in how you discipline a child, praise them, see the best in other people, then you will always win, is how I feel. And so I always try to bring it back to that. I also will say one of the most powerful correlations in Christianity and the life of Jesus Christ and leadership for me is Jesus saw the good in people, right? He saw the potential in the disciples that he chose that were, they weren't politicians. They were fishermen, and he chose them and saw their potential and made leaders out of them and built a church, right? And whether we're building a church or a martial arts organization, or at the core, we're building people, we're bringing out the best in people, right? That is leadership at its core to me. You need to see a person's potential. And I've had this lecture. I do lecture as a boss with some of my staff when we're looking for a new instructor, and there's this one, that one, this one, that one. And sometimes, you talk pros and cons. Is this person outgoing enough? Are they humble enough? Right?
Mm-hmm.
And more and more, I find myself going back to, what have we done? What have we given them? What potential have we seen in them over the past however many years they've been training, to put them in a position that we can confidently say they are ready to step into this leadership role: assistant instructor, leader of a team, you name it. And so I think there's a part of that responsibility for leadership that lies that falls on us, that very easily parallels the lessons in the life of Jesus Christ. Absolutely. So.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. That was a very good way of explaining it. At the end of the day, our goal is to see the potential in people and to bring out the absolute
Yeah.
best in them.
Mm.
And before we were talking, and we were talking about students wanting to quit, and my question to the parent is, do you trust me? And a follow-up to that, based on what you just said, would be, do you believe that I love your child?
Mm.
Do you trust that I love your child? Do you trust
Yeah.
that I have the best intention for them? Because sometimes that gets lost. Sometimes
Yeah.
I think a parent hears, well, you just don't want them to quit because if I quit, you're not getting paid. It's not about that.
Right.
It's not about that,
Transactional.
right? It's about, I see what this child has. I see what your child, I tell parents very often, I see that they are capable of something that you may not see. I know that they're capable of far more than they
Mm.
even believe that they're capable of. And it's
Sure.
it's our job as instructors, I believe, to bring that out in them. And whether you're 3 years old or you're
Yeah.
33 years old, right? I mean, everybody's got goals and everybody's got potential. And how do we bring it out?
That's right. And sometimes you need to put a face to that ideal. Um, right. You have a student who's phenomenal, and kids
Yeah.
only see the phenomenal version of this student. Going back to one of my students who's a staff member who's working with Kevin right now a little bit, he's phenomenal. And if you would have known him when he first started, and I was his instructor
Uh-huh.
10 years ago,
Right.
the most shy, not confident. And now he is very confident. You know what I mean? He's just
Mm-hmm.
he's such a great performer. His skill sets, they are way up there. But yeah, absolutely. You got to show him like this is part of why I don't want you to quit. You could be this. I promise you, this kid was you, and you could be that. Part of it has to come back to your commitment and willingness to be relentless and have that indomitable spirit. But that could be you, and that's why I'm pushing so hard.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the paycheck. You
Right.
still have to
Well,
pay.
again, bring it back to Mike Metzger. First of all, every time you say phenomenal, I hear his voice. That's his word, phenomenal.
That's true. He does use it. Yeah.
But it's all about painting the picture,
Mhm.
and sometimes showing them someone else, just like you said, giving them that example. I just did this yesterday with a little girl who, she's so small and she always has to go against
Mm.
everybody that's bigger than her. And I'm
Sure.
like, let me tell you a story about one of our assistant instructors, Adrian Frias. He was the smallest kid on the mat all the time, was getting beat. I said, but look at him now. What's he doing
Mm.
now? This kid's just killing it. I mean, awesome high school wrestler. And so, like, oh, okay. And so painting that picture and telling that
Yeah.
story and using that, putting a face with the result. Absolutely. 100%. One more time, Michael. I absolutely felt that Jared and Dallas cared about my daughter more than just teaching karate. And thank you for saying
Sierra.
that.
Remember
Man,
her. She was
it,
awesome.
it's it's hard sometimes because we don't always hear, like going back, we don't always hear those compliments from the parents, from the students. We don't
Mm.
always hear it. We see it because we've been doing it a while. We see the improvement, we
Sure.
see the change, but we don't hear it. And what we probably hear more often is the other side of it. I
Right.
didn't get this or I didn't get that.
Sure.
How do you balance that? And even more so, you're a leader of a team. How do you coach your team to deal with that? Not hearing more of the bad than hearing the good sometimes.
Yeah. Try to create a positive atmosphere. Try to coach parents into how to be good karate parents. um, and you see it in the dance world. There's good dance parents that are so positive, and then it's a highly competitive industry, so there are also, not.
Right.
Um, but sometimes it becomes of us, the leaders, to remind them, hey, take a step back. Sometimes we do live in a world where entitlement and let me talk to your manager culture exists, and that's transactional, and we are in a business and in a world of transactions. So sometimes it is what it is there. But I said our goal, and this is where with my staff, I never give them word for word or scripted answers. I always try to teach purpose and why first, right?
Mhm.
So here's the purpose. Here's what I'm shooting for with this parent. And it goes back to really what you're saying. I want them to know that they can trust me, that I care for their student, that my intentions are to bring the best out of them and lead them to this path that will ultimately develop a confidence and a belief in themselves that nobody can take away. Not everybody will always believe you, right? You can have that genuine authenticity about you, and because we live in this world, it's not everybody's going to receive you that way. That's
Mhm.
okay. That's
Right.
how Jesus was too, right? So,
There you go. Bringing it back, right? Important to
yeah.
remember. Man, there's so much that we haven't covered. I'm trying to just dive into a couple more of these questions that I wanted to get into. But looking back on 20 plus years of teaching, what moments or stories stand out as the most fulfilling to you?
Good question. Yeah, I mean, so many stories, right? I think the ones that the moments that are the most fulfilling for me are the beginning and ending of a person's story. When I say ending, there's really no true ending, but recent, I should say recent victory. So one of my favorite things will always be watching a young kid break a board. I
Hmm.
just love, I did a little intro class last week with some first graders, and this cute little girl broke the board. I don't know if she really hurt her hand or not. Maybe she did, but she's crying, and I know those parents are excited and happy and like, you did it, and that's of course what I'm trying to remind her. But again, going back to the story of just seeing my daughter teach with passion and kindness in her heart, and detail oriented teaching that she was doing, and I see that in staff members. Um, One victory for me. So my main Jared, I'll say his name again. Jared was teaching a fight class. We have a
Hmm.
fight club class. Um, just watching him teach, he's such a good teacher. The details that he's going through, his understanding of how to get a back fist and a body punch, and how to not just teach it, but teach drills that actually make the skill become internalized with the students. Those moments for me, when I've been a passionate instructor of how to teach a skill set, when I see my other instructors, students who become instructors, students who I have mentored, who are now mentors and teachers, when I see them doing that at a high level, um, nothing makes me happier. Really, nothing makes me happier. So,
That's great. Let's talk about family balance, right? We're talking a lot about martial arts and what's going on in the martial arts school, but as both a martial arts instructor and a proud dance dad, how do you balance supporting your daughter's passions while running multiple schools?
um, is there such thing as balance when you're riding a bike? Are you ever on balance? You're
Nope.
never,
I,
you're
Mike
always,
Chat Mike Chat said it best. It's not about balance, it's about the counterbalance, the constant
mm,
counterbalance. Or another way is
yeah,
we're always juggling. I don't know if we're ever really
yeah,
balancing anything. We're just kind of juggling. So,
yeah,
but I mean, you're obviously running three schools. I know you're going to say your team has a big part in allowing you the opportunity. But I mean, listen, you got to be there for your team. You got to be there for your kids and your family. Where,
yeah.
what do you do that you find yourself making it work?
Yeah. Scheduling was never something I was good at, and I had to be. Um, so priority, like I definitely know. I love the gym. I've loved going to the gym, being fit. I play basketball. I lift weights. I love it. Right. I love the blessings that God's given me physically, mentally, and otherwise. But I think prioritizing things, and for me, and not to overstate my belief in Christ or my religion, but the priorities that I think I've put in my life have absolutely kept me centered. If we're talking about balance, and focused on the things and sometimes that means something's got to fall to the side, and you
Mhm.
can't do everything, right? So I serve in my church. I spend time with my kids on Sundays. I Because I'm usually at karate later, some of the most important daddy daughter time is on the way to school, and often at night before we go to bed. And there's times in the middle, of course, too, and we try to take trips. But I would say that supporting their passions is probably at the core of what I think can help me to stay balanced. I hate missing anything. As I've gotten more competitive with a team who I take and travel, I've had to miss things that have conflicted. That's really been hard for me.
Mhm.
I don't like missing things of my girls, but I'll say this. I remember hearing maybe 10, 20 years ago, an industry leader say something to the effect of, my kids will do martial arts, because how could I teach or preach the value of martial arts if my own children are not doing it, right? And that stuck with me, and I tried to push my kids. But when the passion and their eyes light up through dance, and they still did karate, but of course I'm going to support what they absolutely fell in love with. And,
Mhm.
through that process, as my daughter, my oldest, who's now 20, she followed that passion, and she actually was featured on for the Dancing with the Stars show. She was in that, and that kind of stuff. Those
I just watched
opportunities
it last
don't
night.
come. Oh, okay. So you watched the opening show.
I
Some
did.
of my daughter's best friends are on that
Wow.
show. I'm not going to say all their names, but there's
Yeah.
a few.
Cool.
And those cool opportunities and achievements, they don't come when you're not following your passion, and when you don't have a good support system around you. So I try to be that. I try to be the best I can with that, and hopefully I'm doing okay.
Yeah. Sounds like you're doing great. Sounds like you're
Yeah.
doing awesome. Hey,
Yeah,
last
thanks.
question for you today, and we're right. I know I said it won't go over an hour. We're right at
Sure.
but I got to give you this last question. Where do you see martial arts education heading in the next decade, and what role do you hope to play in shaping that future?
I love where martial arts is and where it's going. I definitely love the sport karate. I think being a dance dad, having spent quite a bit of time watching dance and watching the industry of dance and seeing how far ahead of the martial arts industry they are, at least when it comes to competitions and creating really high level dancers. There are a lot. I think that the sport karate world lends itself to a culture that gives kids the opportunity to pursue, different styles. I want to excel in traditional or extreme or contemporary or point fighting, or the weapons and the demos. I'm so inspired by the Raptor team. If you know who Team Freestyle is, they're phenomenal. And I think I had mentioned this before. I love the demo team element of martial arts. I believe that is a way for team camaraderie to be implemented. I have a couple of my students that I work with did a team form this last at the Utah tournament that we just had over the weekend, the Valor Showdown, and they rocked it. And to see the camaraderie that they're building by working together, tossing the bow staff back and forth, smiling at each other.
Yep.
They did the 6-7 thing, which I don't know if that's,
Don't start.
oh, sorry. If I would have judged him, I would have given him a 9.67. I told him, but yeah,
Right.
I think it's a responsibility that we have to make sure that, there are a lot of traditions that are awesome and powerful. And then we have to be realistic that there are some that hold us back as an industry. And when we put the martial artists first, I believe that there's a lot of progress that we'll be able to make in the industry. So I see it going well in terms of professional martial arts schools. And I think that the more that these competitions and schools come together and keep the martial artists first in their experience and not my ego and my pocketbook, so to speak, I think we'll have an opportunity to go really far and to spread the martial arts values far as well.
I love it. That's great. That's great. Well, hey, keep doing what you're doing. I apologize for keeping you past that hour mark. Like I said,
Oh, no,
I
man.
almost never go, but we had such a good, easy conversation today. And
Appreciate
by the way,
yeah.
we didn't even hit all the questions today, but we'll have to run it back another time. I know you got a busy
anytime.
day ahead of you, and I want to let you go, but thank you so much for your time. Thank you for being on the show. Thank you for everything you do in the martial arts industry, and keep doing it, because you're definitely helping drive the industry in the right direction just by your example. So keep up what you're doing.
Thank you so much. And thanks for this opportunity. I love what you do, sir. Thank you.
All right. Well, hey, we'll send some messages back and forth about how much our deadlift is in a few weeks, and hopefully we'll catch up pretty soon.
Amen. Okay. Sounds good.
All right, guys. Thank you all for watching Master Motivation Podcast today with Dallas Lawrence. Do us a favor, share the video, and please go and subscribe at Master Motivation Podcast. And we'll see you next time. Thanks. See you, Dallas.
Thank you. See ya.